Well, parties formerly in coalition with the DA in the city of Johannesburg have urged the party to review its position on coalitions. This after party leader John Steenhuisen said they would not form part of a coalition that involves the Patriotic Alliance in the city of Johannesburg. Here's some of the big names. Of course, ActionSA, IFP and ACDP wanted to put a motion of no confidence against the city of Johannesburg Mayor Tapelo Ahmed, but he's since resigned. We'll talk about that timing in a moment. Today's council meeting was due to vote on two things, really the motion of no confidence against the mayor and, of course, Speaker Colleen Makobela. We'll unpack all those issues with ActionSA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, making time for me this morning. Michael, morning. Thank you for coming in. Let's just first of all start, I want to get your thoughts on the timing of this. We're being told that Tapelo Ahmed resigned. Nothing to do, according to radio reports, nothing to do with the timing, that today was a motion of no confidence. Do you buy that?
Yeah, it was a spectacular coincidence, I suppose. No, we don't buy that at all, Gareth. I think we must be clear. When ActionSA brought this motion of no confidence in Tapelo Ahmed, there's been an outpouring from Joburg residents who are often deeply confused by his public appearances and lack of a coherent vision for, let's be honest, a city that has huge challenges and needs very clear and strong leadership to address them.
Was he ever qualified to do this job?
No, certainly not. And I
His
think
fault, though? I mean, not qualified, but he sort of came out of nowhere, respectfully.
I think it's like if the wrong player gets put into a team, it's not the player's fault, it's the selector. Okay. And I think in many ways that's what the ANC and EFF have done. They had a compromise deal. They can't agree between them who leads, and they're putting in parties that have one or two seats. There's no real constituency, there's no real vision, and this is the consequence of that decision.
I was listening to a fascinating discussion on radio yesterday. Just give me your thoughts. That part of the strategy for the ANC, arguably the EFF, but let's stick with ANC for now, part of the strategy for elections next year is to put people into positions knowing they're going to fail and then come back to the electorate and say, see, coalitions don't work. This is why you must only vote ANC. Does it hold water for you?
Well, ironically, it seems to be the strategy of both the ANC and the DA. They involve themselves in coalition. They are destructive in those forms of coalition and how they lead or participate within them. And then they go out to the electorate, and there's many examples that can be proven to show this, to say that, look, coalitions don't work, you've got to give us a majority in the future, which is obviously deeply ironic because if you look at the electoral math in South Africa, there's no way anyone's getting a majority next year. And actually, people need to be looking at political parties to say, can they play well and effectively in a coalition space? And I think with a lot of the established parties, it's not a good look.
The DA saying that to get people around the table, negotiating tables, coalition tables, if you will, unclenching the fists, I think is what some people are using to describe it. Some are coming back, though, saying the DA needs to do that as well, unclench their fists and come to the party, if I can use that terrible choice of words. Is that true? Are they clenching fists?
Well, without any question. I mean, that Moonshot pact announcement by the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, was a breath of fresh air for so many South Africans because it said all the right things, it had all the right attitudes. It was about let the past be the past, let's bind hands, because we need an alternative to an ANC and EFF scenario in 2024. And as much as the announcement was made in a way that made it a party political announcement, we bought in saying, let's engage, it's an important announcement.
So you agree with the Moonshot Pact, it's just execution?
We're available to be part of a discussion around it. Okay. We have a few things that we think need to be addressed and how it's being managed, but the outcome of what it's trying to achieve is exactly what South Africans need. Because for a long time, South Africans have understood that the ANC is falling. But there's never been that second part of the equation that can inspire confidence, say this could take its place. And that's what we want to find ourselves building. The irony about what's happened in Joburg is if the Moonshot Pact's intention is to provide an alternative to ANC and EFF governance, that's theoretical in 2024. In Joburg, we have an actual ANC and EFF government. And 2 weeks later, they pass up the opportunity to remove them. It makes no sense.
DA saying they won't work with the PA, Patriotic Alliance. Where does ActionSA sit on this? Is that a deal breaker?
No. Well, I think from our point of view, we need to work with a broad number of parties to keep the ANC and EFF out. It has to be that simple. I think where we disagree with the DA is that it can't be a country club, an old boys kind of country club where, it's exclusive membership and it becomes a purist kind of thing. Certainly their reservations about the PA and the instability in the last few months is shared with many parties. But the point is you've got to work with parties and bring them in. And it's worth noting, Gareth, that the last two occasions, at January and now again in April, the PA has been willing to join and it's been the DA that's kept them out.
And is that something that you would like the DA to change their mind on?
Well, certainly, and we'll be engaging them directly in that fashion, because if you're serious about keeping the ANC and EFF out and it's not a PR kind of stunt, you need to be willing to do all the things that the leader of the DA spoke about in that press conference.
Because one could argue that some are accusing the DA leadership and John Steenhuisen specifically of trying to control and not have coalitions, but arguably they are the second biggest party in the country. They've got more governance. One would argue they've got a bit more experience, or is that not how coalitions should be run? Because they are the second biggest party, they've been there the longest. Should you not sort of acquiesce to a bit more of what they want?
Well, I think the point is those facts of their size and governance would be very helpful if they conducted themselves in a productive manner.
So it's a
coalition
issue.
It would be a wonderful thing if they could bring that to the table, because I think in a coalition, political parties across the spectrum bring different things to the table. I think DA governance has some blind spots, and there's some examples in the Western Cape, etc., that are far from the kind of good governance track record that they want to put forward. And that's where coalitions become helpful, because political parties can work together, sort out those blind spots and produce a better overall outcome. But if the party, as you say, is that's largest in a coalition and that has that track record on governance, isn't going to bring that to the table, but rather is going to bring the kind of conduct that we've seen in the last few weeks or months, it really doesn't help the stability of coalitions.
It doesn't. Certainly doesn't help the residents of Johannesburg, in this case, and Tshwane and Ekurhuleni. We can keep going on. But Johannesburg for now, Michael, because I want to ask you about a little bit later criminal charges against G4S. We'll get there in a moment. What now, though? We're now minus a mayor again in Johannesburg. There's still a motion of no confidence against the Speaker, Colleen Makobele. What's the goal? What's the aim? What's the hope of ActionSA? What now?
Yeah, I think, let me be clear, I don't think Joburg's had a mayor since Mpho left. And I think that's probably something to observe, because the fact that there's someone in the position doesn't mean there's necessarily someone behind the wheel.
Last person to finish a full term was Parks Tau, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And then Herman Mashaba did 3 years, and since then I think, I saw a crazy stat the other day, I think there's been 6 or 7 mayors since then. It's been completely outrageous.
So who's next?
Well, I think from this point of view, we're going to be working with our coalition partners and seeing if we can agree towards putting forward a candidate. Unfortunately, what the DA has done fragments the parties that we work with, and it creates confusion, and people aren't sure what they're going to do. We met last night, and I think from our point of view is we're going to work to see if we can't find a candidate that we can put forward, and then perhaps canvass other political parties, including the DA, to see if they're willing to support, because if they're not willing to play the leadership role in coalition, and if they're going to say, not for us, that's all right, but surely it can't just be sitting back and watching the ANC and EFF returning. They need to support someone else.
I just want to change track very quickly, if you don't mind, before I say goodbye, Michael. Just move away from politics for the moment. Well, I suppose it is politics, but not coalitions. ActionSA and the Bareng family are going to lay criminal charges against G4S, the security company that was managing Mangaung Correctional Facility, and the Free State Health Department, all to do with Thabo Beste's escape, the bodies found in the prison, etc. Can you give me a sense of what you're hoping? Because I see National Health Acts, there are offences there being cited. We have to go into the citing of the offences. Why lay charges? What are you hoping?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at this entire saga from the beginning to the end, it's just been riddled with criminal breaches of our law. Whether it relates to getting the body in there, the escape, and how many people must have been involved in this company to look the other way. I think that particular part is the most disturbing part. And from our point of view, we need to lay criminal charges. There needs to be accountability. This family needs to see justice in the manner in which their son was treated. And from our point of view, that justice has to take place, and we'll be fighting very hard to ensure it happens.
Yeah, it's a bizarre story. Katlego Jr. Bareng's body moved from a location into a prison cell. I mean, if you were to watch this from outside as an observer from another country, it's like the script of a movie if it wasn't so devastatingly sad.
No, absolutely, and I think that's exactly the point. Before one can remark upon how crazy it is, you've got to reflect that it takes place in a country where our criminal justice system is broken, and so many people don't see justice being done when we have these terrible criminal offences in our country.
That's going to be happening a little bit later, I understand, at a police station in Bloemfontein at 11 o'clock this morning. So charges going to be laid against G4S. A lot of anger at G4S, the organisation, the company that is running, or that was running, the Mangaung Correctional Facility. A lot of anger, a lot of sadness around the story. My thanks to Michael Beaumont, coming in, ActionSA national spokesperson, joining us on coalitions. The next Johannesburg mayor, not giving me a name, but saying they're going to have meetings with coalitions. The question is, for voters and Joburg residents, are you making sense of what exactly is going on?